to an island in the Black Lagoon. To an island in the Black Lagoon. Eep, burp. To Benaler, Bringer Black Lagoon. Just gonna kick it for just a second, y'all, for about another minute. We're gonna hit this stream up 420 style. I know it's a couple days late, but you know, it's never too late for all that silliness. I can't wait to get away. To an island in the Black Lagoon. Just one more minute. Greetings all. Greetings. Welcome. Welcome. File on in and hear some nonsense, will you? Can't wait to get away. To an island in the Black Lagoon. I don't know if those are the words, but you know, it's DIY. Hey, Robert, Joe, Martin, Ignacio, Jason, Dan, and Peter. What's up, D. Morrison? My peeps showing up. Jack Norin. Only one thing can stop the Russian terrorist agenda. Jack Norin. Paul Crosland, what up? Can't wait to get away. What am I into? Well, you're about to find out. I'll tell you what. And Jeff, you know, stone cold chilling. Quarantinium. I am made out of 40% quarantinium. It's a new metal substance. To get away. Whoa! 420 just snuck right on up. About 40 of y'all rolling on in for the Monster Workshop. Oh, we're crashing right past 50, and we are getting ready to partay. Where's my picture? How do I bring up my picture? I got to come out the internets. Wait a minute, I'm a little loud here. I got to come out the internets. I got to... That's the sound I make when I come out to the internets. Hey, you guys, thanks for the beer money. Appreciate that. What the hell? Starting today, all the tips that come in on all the live streams that I'm going to be doing are going to go to Frontline Foods. So if you hop on over to frontlinefoods.org, here's how you spell it. For any tips that come in during live streams, I'm going to total those up at the end of any given live stream, and that amount will be shuffled straight over to Frontline Foods. These guys are pretty cool. They're providing meals and support for the badasses in scrubs who be looking out for y'all, for me, and, you know, getting them Chick-fil-A, good stuff like that. So you can read up on all the details, but, yeah, we're gonna help them guys out, and them ladies, too. All right, before we get any further, this stream is not a quarantining streamium. This is a little Monster Workshop right up in here. This is important stuff. It's very, very important that we continue doing a hobby. So yeah, boobly-doo and a dibbly-ding-dong. What are we doing? Okay, so let me get you some context before we just jump into all this stuff. We still got, welcome everybody. Nice to have all of you here. 65 of you just rolling up in the middle of the day for no damn reason. Oh wait, there is a reason. Be mo better at running your D&D sessions. All right, so here's how it breaks down. So my man, I always forget how to spell his name. Oh yeah, MASUKOMI. So MASUKOMI is not this person's real name. It's a username on Discord forums and elsewhere. Also a member of the Shield Wall over at Runehammer Patreon. He sent me a really heartfelt and well thought out email. It must have been like a week and a half ago. It's so hard to tell how much time has passed. In quarantine time, a week ago was like about 3 years ago. So if you figure, he sent me this email about 4 years ago. Anyway, the email was really brilliant, and it was about this big question that has been asked so many times is like, yo, B, yo, Hankrin, Ingrid, where your monster manual at, man? So you guys know that I've done some publishing, some of it sticky, some of it more successful than others. But I get a lot of requests to do a monster manual to go with Index Card RPG, and I'm always kind of given this sort of flippity answer, like, my system is more about creating monsters not providing you with dozens and dozens or hundreds of monsters like some systems do, which is really fun to collect a bunch of monsters in your sort of archive. But I'm always talking up the art of creating them. And so, yeah, Ignacio, this one will be archived, I imagine, unless I just completely lose it and go off the rails here at some point. But, oh boy, thanks, Thunder Chicken. That $20 is going to go straight to Frontline Foods. Thank you, sir. I owe you a beer, brother. So, I always forget. Is it Misakumi? Is it Kumamasi? Kamamisi? Masukomi. So Masukomi hits me up. He says, not only, yo, dude, where your monster manual at? And then I said, I'm not really going to make one. I'm more about people creating their own monsters because that's how I do a lot of my games. I take inspiration from a lot of sources, but I make my own monsters. So it would be strange for me to like want readers to shell up a bunch of money for a bunch of monsters that I had created when my real philosophy is create them yourself. And then his response is what's so epic and what gave rise to today's little workshop. He said, well, you know, that's beautiful and everything, but not everybody is already practiced and good at just creating monsters in a way that is fun for play, that's challenging, that's interesting, you know. And I think it was brilliant because he kind of said, you know, you might be forgetting about, you know, some of the beginners here. Like you're saying, just make your own stuff and walking off with a smile on your face and forgetting that not everybody has 10, 20, 30 years of experience making monsters for their groups. And so since all of us are playing online right nowadays, actually, I think it brings a little more pressure on the fun of your monsters, the interestingness of monsters, because we don't have that face-to-face fun that the hobby has during normal times, right? And so his question and his call to action for me was timely and also just like hit me right in the gut of just like, look, if you're going to tell folks, just come up with your own stuff, you know, break it down. Don't just say, good luck and cruise off. Okay. It's like, hey, you can figure out how to go fishing. I'm out of here. Actually, I'm a terrible fisherman, but that's not the point. So we come to today. That was a horrible, horrible intro to what I hope is going to be a useful little session of creativity. And we're going to do the Runehammer Monster Workshop. Okay. So I also wanted to do this live because I just kind of wanted to sort of throw out some slop, so to speak, and do it in real time so you don't get that feeling of like, actually, this took me 2 hours to do, and then I edit it down so it makes it look all easy, right? So this is a little more of a real-time kind of feel for things, so I wanted to just do it live, just jump out, friggin' go for it, right? Okay, so welcome to the Runehammer Monster Workshop. What we're going to do today is talk about bringing flavor and fun to your monsters in your games without sort of always having to find one that matches in a book, because you want, like, you know, quality stat blocks and you want them to have cool actions and stuff like that. Instead of having to find them, you get this nice rhythm going for your creative skill to create them. Okay, so I think it's like 7 key points that we're going to sort of get philosophical first. And then with that philosophy in mind, we're going to go ahead and create 3 monsters just kind of on the fly. Okay, so here's the first principle right here. Check it out. These arrows will make you look at the first one. This is classic dry erase theory right here. Point at things with arrows. Okay, fit to a theme. Before you do anything with creating your monster or your set of monsters for your session or your next session or your overarching campaign or whatever, you need to have a theme that is identifiable. And just D&D is not a theme. A theme is something that you can feel or that one of your senses can really easily, tangibly, quickly assimilate. A good example would be like lava. I know this is a bit of a tropey one, but like magma and lava are a really classic, super identifiable theme. And if you kind of roll with that theme and say, hey, this monster I'm going to create or set of monsters is all focused around lava. Okay, great. I know some stuff right away. Fire, heat, melting metal, smoke, maybe, you know, lighting things on fire. Maybe there's a volcanic element like coming out of the ground somehow. Okay, that's probably all I need. But the point here isn't that magma is cool, which it totally is. It's that as a theme, it instantly evokes things. And that's what I would call like free data or like free inspiration. It's so intuitive as a theme that you don't have to sit there and go, what's cool about lava? I just don't know. I can't visualize lava in my brain. Nobody says that. Everybody knows what lava's all about. So the more nuanced and strange your theme is, the more difficult this is going to be. the more sort of big time and tropey and simple your theme is, the more it's going to hit home like a ton of bricks. Okay, so another one could be like vampires. Vampires are a theme that come with all this tasty data. You've got the biting on the neck. You've got the sort of the pathogen being moved through the blood. You've got the sort of immortality component. You've got like the changing into mist form and bat form, and you've got the kind of cross on the forehead stuff. You've got all this free data. So find a theme before you do anything. You need to know where you're going. Okay, so that's part one. Part two. Now you guys know, see I pointed at that with an arrow like a baller, right? Think visual first. Before you worry about if the stats are going to be cool, if it's going to be too hard, if it's going to be too deadly, or if it's going to be too easy, or if it's going to be boring and there's going to be too many of them or too few of them, or how fast it can move, any of this stuff. It do not matter. What matters is seeing it in your mind. Got to see that monster visually. Now, if you need to scour the net for some art to get yourself moving, take something you love from a video game or from a movie to see it in your head, then by all means do it. But using the right brain will put you where you need to be, which is creating into, not out of. Creating out of is where you face the void and you're like, I'm going to have a cool idea now. It's really difficult. But if you have a vision, a visual component, you can create into that visual component to fit it, rather than just trying to pull things out of thin air, which is a lot more difficult. So think visual first. All right. Now, this is the real meat and potatoes of the Monster Workshop right here. This is my biggest, most impactful point, which is so many people, when they're creating monsters, always think to themselves, what can this monster do? It's such a classic way of thinking about monster creation. What does this thing do? Does it do a bunch of damage? Does it teleport? Is it like camouflage? What does this thing do? And I would argue this is not what you want to do. It's not that it's bad. It's just not the method that's going to get you to creative optimization quickly. What you want for creative optimization is this question right here. Can heroes do X? Can your players do Ba? Ask this question of yourself. Can my players defeat a ton of tiny little enemies? Can my players take on something huge and almost indestructible, like some kind of Colossus or Titan? Can my players find a weakness in a seemingly invulnerable enemy? Can my players defeat something that moves insanely fast? Can my players contain an incorporeal monster? You see, what you're doing is you're asking what they can do before you're thinking about how you're going to create this monster. And asking that question is what gives rise to what the monster might be. Now, the easiest one is the one I said first, which is, can my players beat a large group of very small enemies? This is a classic question to ask. And you don't have to know the answer. What you have to do is want to find out what the answer is. I wonder if they could beat like 50 goblins, even if each one had 1 hit point. I wonder what they would do. If you have a desire to see that answer played out, you're ready to create your goblins. Not because you've gotten answers about the mechanics, but because you've put your head into an inspirational space. And so all the subsequent decisions are going to be easier because you're wondering, can this be done? And if so, how? And then you can work into that question because you're excited and you want to see the outcome. You're like, well, I'm going to find out. And you know how I'm going to do it? I'm going to spawn 50 of these suckers before they even know what's happening. They all have 1 hit point and they're all jumping around. And then I'll find out if they can handle this. It puts you in what I think is a superior mindset to just going, what does a goblin do? Well, he's got a sword. And he's kind of quick and he hides in the bushes. I know that. But that doesn't necessarily, in my mind, set me up to mechanically create variety. Okay, next up. And on that note of variety, that was a local news quality segue right there. Variety and rhythm in your monster creation come before worrying about challenge. It's more important and more primal in your creative process to create variety in a session rather than worrying about how hard or easy something's going to be. Now, let me break it down. Let's continue with the idea we just worked on. You've got 50 goblins, each with 1 hit point. They come out. At first, the players are being overrun. It's like a big, nasty situation, but then they realize, oh, they can use like some AoE sort of concussive stuff, or maybe they can use a tank to compress the goblins, or they can use a narrow space, you know, like 300 style to kind of trickle them in and kill them one by one, whatever. But then the next fight that they experience should be 1 or 2 enemies that have very high hit points and all kinds of defenses. Do you see how that instantly creates diametric rhythm and variety? Oh, we just fought this huge crowd of stuff, which was all about dealing as many single hit point blasts as we could to as many targets as we could. And now this next fight is this huge thing that seems completely impervious, and it requires a completely different mindset to attack it. This variety and this rhythm, to me, is more important than worrying about, well, the first thing was challenge X, and this next one's is going to be challenge X plus 1. That can come later when you're sort of flowing in the intuitive creation of things. But to me, variety and rhythm are far more important about how challenging a thing may or may not be. Okay, finally. Not finally, actually. I don't even know why I said finally. This isn't the end. All right. By the way, I can't see the chat stream right now. So if you guys can hold for a little bit, then I'll go for questions here toward the end. I'm in Photoshop world and I've got the full brain. It's very small, so I have to use it all at the same time. Point number 5, the art of tells. Now, tells is a term that's generally used in video game development. A tell is something that lets you know something bad's about to happen. So a classic one in video games is you'll see like some kind of target or reticle like go onto your hero, ding, 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 ding. And that means I'm being targeted. Something's about to shoot me. And the reason that we use tells is because without tells, if enemies just ambush you all the time, there's this feeling of just like, what, you just want me to have ninja reflexes? Like that's your whole design philosophy? That sucks. Now a tell in a tabletop game, in pen and paper, is a little bit different because you don't necessarily need to alert the reflexes of the player. What you want to do is alert their problem-solving mind. Now, a great way to do this is to have something happen with your bad guy just before the combat unleashes. And this can also be a place for you to get creative without having to worry about stats yet. Remember, I'm trying to put off thinking about stats toward the end, partially because I don't know what system y'all play in. And secondly, because for me, I don't know about you guys, doing the stats are the hard part. All the thematic and the creative stuff is the fun part. So a tell is something like you're creeping up. Let's go with the vampire thing. You're creeping up on a vampire. He doesn't know you're there yet. And as you sort of, peek into his lair, you see him like he's left his wine on the far end of the room. And rather than walking over to get it, he like turns into mist and then rematerializes next to the wine and takes a drink. That's a tell. That's saying to the players, this mofo can turn into fog, yo. And not only can he do it, it's like hella like casual, like he does it just to like, get a drink. This is a tell. What this does is it invites the players to know what they're fighting. Just like in the video game case. When you know an attack is coming, it's much more fun to build your defense against it rather than just being jumped. And similarly with a monster, when you know they have a strange ability or sort of a linchpin ability or a lock and key type ability, to see it first and get a nice hint and then go into combat gives players something to chew on and something to cognitively break down as they're fighting. And they're like, why can't we beat this guy? And they remember that missed component or whatever tells you're delivering. And so when you're asking yourself, what's cool about this monster? One place you can find answers might be creating tells. All right, next up. This one, everybody knows where I stand on this. I'm somewhat known for my stance on this, but here it is again. And now we're heading towards Statland. Okay, we're going to get in the car together and we're going on a family vacation to Statland. And I want you to use significant math. An example of non-significant math would be one creature has an armor class of 13 and another creature has an armor class of 15. These are not significantly, there is no true difference here. This is going to be the same kind of gameplay. If you take these two monsters and extremify them, So the first one has a 10 and the second one has a 15. Now you're talking. That is significantly different math. If you're moving from 14 to 15, you're moving from 17 to 18, stuff like that, there's no point. And, you know, I have to call out a lot of the biggest game publishers out there for being terribly guilty of this. You should be paging through monsters, and they'll have 1 and 2 number variants between them. It's kind of like how they list all the stats on all the monsters, and they're all like +1, +2, +2, +1, +1, +2. And then the next monster is +2, +1, +2, +2, +1. And it's just like, this is not significantly different. If you want to use like the 6 stat system on your monsters and make it significantly different, you know, here's your 6 stats. You just have all zeros, and then you have +10 right here, and then another 0. And then your next monster has +10 up here on strength and all zeros on everything else. That's significantly different. And this is something that's different enough where it creates its own tell. When players watch you roll a dice and add a number, like add a bonus, you know, thinking in sort of roll over D20 terms, that's a tell. They go, oh man, this thing rolls +10 on its melee attacks. What the fuck? And then in the next battle, they notice this thing is rolling raw D20s on its attack rolls. This thing is a chump. That's a form of tell, rather than them just fighting blindly hoping to win. So use significant math in your monsters so they're wildly differentiated in a way that makes them identifiably different. Finally, this is another one that I've sort of been known for a couple years ago, which is that the word balance is just BS. There's no such thing. If you think that there's some kind of magic formula or design philosophy that makes a monster ideal to battle a certain group of players at a certain level, it's complete BS. Players use tactics, they use the environment, they use their gear, and they use creative role-playing to overcome monsters way more than any kind of so-called wizard math that makes a certain difficulty line up to a certain group of players in some meaningful way. It's all a complete myth. And also, if something is way too powerful for a group, hey, welcome to the world, yo. That's how it is. If it's too hard to handle, run or come up with something. You're not going to get a monster that's just tailor-suited to your power level. This should be just right for your enjoyment. Now, screw that. That's not how life works. Things sometimes are hard, and you need to deal with it. All right? So those are my points. We're going to zoom out so you can kind of you can take it all in at the same time. I really do think that this guy right here is the meatiest one. Not asking what a monster can do, but can your players overcome challenge X? Okay? You know, I bet they can't. I bet they've never even faced anything like that. I'm going to come up with a monster like that. And that's exactly what we're going to do right effing now. Get rid of all this stuff. Oh, look, I marked up my base layer. That's not cool. So thanks, MASUKOMI, for this great question. It led to this entire discussion. First monster. There he is. You may recognize this monster. This is, I believe they're called Magma slimes from the Battle Chasers RPG. And these things are cool. They bite you. They burn you. You catch on fire. So again, starting visually is what I've done. I know that I want this thing visually in my encounter. Maybe because they're journeying down into a sort of a magma primordial domain, or maybe into a fire demon realm, or even a red dragon, and these things are kind of coming out of the cracks, and the magma takes a sentient form, and it's ravaging, and it wants to eat skeletons and stuff like that. I don't think. Whatever. All I know is this thing is cool looking, and I want it to be in my game. That's the impulse that I start with. And now I start to think about these guys. So let's just combine these suckers so I can just see them all at once. There we go. I know my theme. It's a magma theme. I've got my visual. What can it do? The what can question here is pretty interesting. It's kind of like asking, can players deal with fire and heat? That's kind of what I'm going to be asking here. Do my players really have cool mechanisms to deal with being ignited, with burning, like taking damage over time, with losing gear to extreme heat, like with inhalant issues, with smoke and heat? Do they have survival mechanisms on that front? I'm not sure, but that's what I'm going to hit them with. So right away, I know I need to give this thing like melt gear. What else was I saying? Oh yeah, inhalants. So it's like emit smoke and ignite for a DOT. DOT is damage over time. So if I put ignite on you, then for 3 more turns, you're going to take damage. So this thing can move on and bite somebody else, and you're still going, do my players have a way to deal with that? And right away, the first thing that pops in my mind is add a little treat to this room, which is water nearby. So they have a way to extinguish some of this, but would be one version of the fight. And then again, they fight these things later without the water. So you're creating that combination of tells to say this is an escalation. There's no water here. You're on your own this time. It's going to be hard to extinguish the ignite. Now, again, going off the visual, I'm just like, this thing looks kind of small. Like there's a bunch of these things. So I know this seems silly, but I would just make a note like spawn lots. Okay, now the final question is actually, to me, what a lot of people try to do first. And that's, we finally get to our end, which is the unpleasant bit, which is where we say, if you're playing D&D, this thing's, CR3, and it has, if you're using the 5e hardcore mode, which is what I've been playing under lately, then, okay, sure, so it has 30 HP and blah, blah, blah. It has +3 on its rolls and on and on and on. And this is normally where people begin their monster design. I'm not even thinking about this stuff until I know the far more important stuff up here. This isn't even a monster fact. This is an environmental fact, but it comes from the creative process of thinking into this visual right over here. And that's the mindset that, in my opinion, gets you to more interesting and identifiable and varied monsters, not this stuff. This stuff down here is not what's interesting about monsters. It's this stuff, I would argue. Okay, so now we're going to keep escalating. This is like turning into a session now at this point. Oh boy, looks like a Magma to me. On the one hand, you could just look up Magma in the monster manual and be like, okay, let's play Magmans as they're written. That can be cool because players are like, we beat Magman's legit style, like right out of the book. But I don't do that too often. I like to create monsters. It's like a bunch of the fun for me, so I don't want to ruin my fun by looking it up in a phone book full of monsters. Okay, so we've got the same theme here, which is fire and heat and stuff, but this is a little humanoid. And also, look at this sucker. He's nasty. Bang. See, I'm looking at the picture. I say he's nasty. That is my sort of beginning, my creative seed. Nasty. What does that even mean? That's not an RPG term. That's not a tabletop term. What does nasty mean? I think he goes after the weak. So if he sees someone with less armor or someone who's smaller, maybe a familiar or halflings or gnomes, he always targets them first. And even if they're in numbers, they'll do that, which is just plain mean. What else is nasty? He disappears and recovers. I hate when monsters do that. It's so dang nasty. So why not just kind of run with it? He disappears into fire. Disappears into any fire and recovers to full HP. That is the definition of nasty. Like, you're working this guy down and then and he just goes, kind of disappears into the flames. He's completely rejuvenated and pops back out again. You're like, fuck, man. I hate this freaking thing. Okay. Next. I mean, this is now obvious. We're just running with it. Immune to fire. Why not? Maybe both of these things are immune to fire. That's interesting. Okay, I'll link it up there. Why not? And then let's do a big tell for fun to kind of drive that point home. Every timer, and if you guys want to learn more about how I use timers, you can look up some of my videos. What does he do? He does something nasty. Fire guts. He lights a blazing hot fire in your freaking stomach. Every timer, fire guts. Now you can work on what the exact stats are for fire guts. Maybe there's a con save. And if you fail it, you drop to 0 HP instantly, fall over, and your stomach is freaking on fire. This thing is mean and nasty. Okay, so now, that sounds like a pretty dang deadly thing. I'm finally to the boring part at the end. So it sounds pretty deadly. It's maybe like a CR7. I know that challenge rating has all kinds of math problems in its supposed real usage, but I use it as just a fundamental reference of how hard a thing is. For me, it's still handy. And I also use it, I multiply challenge rating times 10 to get hit points. I use it as the modifier on all rolls. I use challenge rating a lot, and that's where you can go read 5e hardcore mode, which is on Drive-Thru-RPG, and you can see more about how I do that exact formula. So anyways, I know he's CR7. I nasty. Again, this is my favorite word right here. So he has 2 actions, and he always flees for free, just like a goblin. Now, this may seem like a bit of a mess to process while you're at the table, but when I would cook this down into a very compressed format, I have maybe, 4 or 5 little lines. That is all I need in my notebook to run these guys in combat. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the pièce de la résistance, and that is this jerkwad right here. Okay, this guy's got a superiority complex, clearly. He's some kind of like noble. He kind of looks vampiric. He's got like this thing going on. He's got like a little, what is that? Is that his amulet of magma control? Sure. Of course it is, because we're in the monster workshop. Whatever we say, our first thing pops out of our mind. Yes. Amulet of magma control. What else did I? Oh yeah, superiority complex. So that right there is kind of interesting, because now we have like a more human enemy. He's going to need to say some lines during the game. So superiority complex is almost all I need to roleplay this guy. I mean, I need to know his name. Like, if you go from the campaign I'm running right nowadays, he would be Zarov, Baron Zarov, which is an insanely cheap ripoff of Strahd, but that's okay. Because that's how we're doing stuff, right? We're just running with what feels inspiring, and we're just not looking back. So he's got this amulet of magma control. So not only can he do the things we're going to figure out, but he can use this as a weapon. So he can either guide around these smaller creatures with this amulet, or he can actually lift physical magma and sort of hurl it across the room, or create, weapons out of it or something. We can work on that as we go. But then he has this superiority complex. He is the Lord of Fire. He was made by the pillars of the earth, blah, blah, blah. This is the speech and the crap he's going to be talking during the battle. Or maybe there won't even be a battle. Maybe they'll encounter this guy and just be like, we're not fighting this guy. He's too much of a jerk. Okay, so we're going to move on. What else does this guy look like he can do? He looks like he's a swordsman, too. Now, so many monsters just say sword, d6 plus 2, whatever, right? That's very common to see. But we're going to do something better. He has 3 actions. I don't know what they are, but he always gets one of them is swordplay. And then here's 2 others down here. I don't know what they are. And then for swordplay, he has one of 3 options. And this is getting to be pretty complex, right? Because I'm seeing this guy as like a boss. Ooh, there's something. He's a boss. Let's go down here and just put a CR12 on him right away. That's going to be a point of inspiration as we move forward. And back to the sword. He can do a skewer. Skewer doesn't start with the letter K. Skewer. He can do a parry. And he can do like a flurry. Now, I can work out later what those are. But this one is like drops you to 0 hit points. This one blocks like all incoming attacks for 1 round. And this one is like he puts 1 attack on every opponent. So you can almost think of this as like a legendary action here. So every round he's going to use this swordplay ability that he has, which doesn't involve rolling. It's just like Alucard style, right? Ooh, that's nice. That's something I want to keep track of. Alucard, yo. This guy is inspired by Alucard. So when I'm drawing blanks, whether in the design phase or when I'm at the table, I just remember how dope Alucard is. And I'm like, oh man, he's going to do that kind of stuff. So there's another clue of what he needs to do with one of his actions. He needs to teleport, just like Alucard does. And Alucard uses teleporting as part of his swordplay in a way that's so sick. Like he'll drop his sword and then go and then come back and catch it. That shit's so cool. And then finally, I think something about fire. I'm feeling a fire link here to these minions. Maybe we already have a heal via fire. What could he do with fire? Maybe he can take fire form. That's interesting. Almost like Johnny, the Human Torch. What's his last name? Johnny Storm, something like that. So here's a crazy combo. Look at this combo. Remember, the Magmans, they heal to full whenever they walk into an open flame. So if Zarov can turn into a living fire, all he has to do is sort of merge with his Magma minions and they heal to full. Now that is wild. You want to talk about a cool tell before a battle begins, is that there's all these Magmans that like return from beyond the castle and they're all beat up and like one of them is like giving off black smoke and they're like, the adventurers have almost killed us, master. And then Zarov like goes, turns into pure living flame and they're all like, and they come and drink from him and fill back to full HP. As the players watch, that's a huge tell for what you want to not let happen during the battle. Now, dude, you're losing your mind here. Stop it. Okay, the CR is going to need some stuff. He's plus 12 rolls. He's got 120 hit point base, but this is a boss, so I'm just going to double it. And I'll give that a name. 240 HP means he is tough. Something like that. He's got an AC 22 because 10 plus 12 is 22, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so then you're done. You've got an entire set of enemies that not only thematically fit together, but look at the variety that we're having here. This is like a horde. This is like, what do you call these guys? These are almost what I would call a gremlin, is a nickname. A gremlin is a type of enemy that like infuriates you. And so we go from the horde to the gremlin, which is slightly more difficult, but less of them and very evasive. And then, you know, the oldest term in the book, which is a boss. So this, to me, represents the sort of the Runehammer Monster Workshop in action. Now, this is a little bit sloppy to read during a session, right? So what I would want to do is go from this to a little bit cleaner version so that I can do kind of glances during play to make sure I'm playing as written. Especially if you ever have recurring monsters or battles that are attempted more than once, you really want to make sure you're consistent. Or if you're just making stuff on the spot, that's just bull. Don't do that. Don't be that guy or girl. That's not cool. Don't be that person. No believability when you do that kind of stuff. Your reputation's going to be in the gutter over there. You don't want that. You don't want to be in no gutter over there. That's crazy. Okay, so those are the three monsters that I've just come up with on the fly here in the span of 20 minutes or so. Just gabbering at you. And here we're back to our pillar, our modus operandi of monster creation, right? We got our theme going, which is like, it seems like there's this fire cult around this sort of enigmatic figure that they worship him and he feeds them with his fire body. We've already thought visual because we pulled up the tokens before we even knew anything about the monsters. We're asking, can players take on a bunch of fire and heat? Can players stop a super evasive, nasty little bugger? And can players take on a sort of high-powered, almost like Lord character? That one's the worst one. That doesn't have a lot of punch to it. So I might want to work on that question. What am I really asking them to overcome by trying to beat that Zarov character? Well, I guess I'm asking, can they withstand some of his bigger attacks, like the sword attacks, the teleport? Can they really stop like a supernatural sword flurry? Or actually, here's a better one. Can they heal through a super deadly fight with a single foe? That's a fun question to ask. Does my party have the capability to heal through a mega damage encounter? Because I don't feel like Zarov is impervious. He's just damned does he do damage output. So can they heal through it? 4, variety and rhythm. We got that nailed. We got teeny little guys all zipping around and they're non-sentient. Then we have these nasty little fire children. And then we have the one big, oh, here comes the big daddy. You know, he's moving through these like flame teleports to drink he's like drinking like, you know, like pure melted quartz. Pushing it a little far. The art of tells we worked on. Remember, especially with the Magmans sort of drawing their hit points from the master when he takes fire form. And significant math. We're going to vastly change the levels between these characters, not by 1 or 2. We're going to have a feeling of huge sort of jumps from one to the other. So that's all I got, you guys. I'm trying to keep it tight. The reason it took me almost 2 weeks to answer MASUKOMI's question is because I kept saying, well, wow, if I were to answer what he's challenging me to do, can I? And what would be my answer? I mean, the more I thought about it, the more I thought, I don't have a good, clear answer. I mean, just go make a cool monster. Don't ask me these difficult questions. But that's about it. thought about it long enough, got in the journal, got the thoughts down. And jumping over to the chat stream now, Christopher, yeah, I mean, in a way, we are talking about, Johnny Blaze, thank you. We are talking about Castlevania. We are talking about Ghost Rider. Those are both really informative ideas and visual ideas. Oh, man, like a chain whip with a fire like lantern on the end. Oh, hell yeah. That's super cool. Or Ghost Rider. Whoa, only his skull like turns into fire mode. And then, oh, whoa, cool. What does that mean? Maybe he can take it off like the Headless Horseman and throw it at you, whatever. Again, you're getting ideas from the visuals you know, rather than thinking, I need to come up with a monster with appropriate stats. So if you really have like a good solid question, throw it at me with all caps question in front of your comment so I can notice you. And let's do just kind of a little Q&A for a second. Make sure everybody's covered because I know you all got to be getting your monsters created for your next session. So the one that I see just looking right down to the bottom is balance. Yeah, there's no such thing. Like, is this whole sort of world crisis we're going through right now balanced to our ability to cope with it? Hell no. Like, is the SAT easier because you're feeling a little hungover the day you took it at the end of high school? No. The world is as difficult as the world is going to be. Your job is not to perfectly tailor how difficult things are. Sometimes they're going to be too easy, and sometimes they're going to be too hard. And that's the joy of it. It's the not knowing. If you always know something is going to match your power level, where's the adventure in that? So just let go of it. It is a term that has been used way too much in game design for way too long, and I have had enough. Johnny Blaze and Johnny Storm. Johnny Blaze is Johnny Storm in Johnny Storm, the movie. So great. There we go. Inspiration comes from everywhere. Absolutely. And Paul Croslin, as for a mix, tune in tomorrow night for Runehammer Happy Hour at 7 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be getting back into it. 2 or 3 hours of DJ set and trying to raise some more money for frontlinefoods.org. So go over there and throw a few ducats to those guys. Balance is I don't know if it's what the players need to enjoy the game. I think that is created by them, not by you. I really just don't think there's such a thing as balance. I think it's just a myth. And it's something that's used to tear other people down by those who think they know what balance is. I think that's all the purpose of that word is. It's a gatekeeper word, and I don't want to hear no more of it. Question. Ben, thanks for asking, man. While we all know that there are some great inspirations for monsters and villains, a la carte, absolutely. How do you come up with completely original monsters that aren't derivative? You don't. You don't. Let yourself go, man. It's just like Will Smith said, life is hard enough. Don't kick yourself in the nuts. You don't have to come up with wildly original things. On the skeptical side or the cynical side of this, some people think like everything's been done. And in some ways, they're right. There are zillions of original monsters out there. Anything you come up with is going to represent something. Just let it go, man. Do what you know. The methods that I propose are not necessarily focused on creating the most original results imaginable. They are focused on enjoying creative process as a hobbyist. So drawing from things you know and enjoy and already think are badass, like I'm into Gundam. Yeah, a lot of my boss characters kind of wind up looking like medieval Gundams. I don't see a problem here. So I say let your inspiration be what it is. And originality will come now and again as an accident. But I think setting out to be like, I'm going to make something that's completely original, I think you're going to find yourself frustrated. Imbalance makes the world feel more... Oh, D. Breton, that's big. It's a good way to put it. Thank you. Hey, Greg, thanks a lot, man. Look up the story. Yeah, balance is reminding... Sure. Skip my... I skip my question. Feels bad, man. I can't see everything. If you can throw it back up square, then I'll see it. I need that big, all caps. Who said all tropes are already seen? Oh, that's been said since the 20s. Here we go. How do you entice or teach new players to become more tactical? Just be meta with them. When you're in that part before the session or that part after the session when everybody's had too many beers, either time is a great time to just meta it up. Just don't worry about being the dungeon master and keeping these secrets and having these big reveals. Just let it go. Suggest tactics. Suggest tactical thinking. Go ahead and let that tactical conversation happen as if you're a player, not as a dungeon master. And especially if you see players really struggling to be tactical, it's a good time to just take off your DM hat and just talk with them as a friend about tactics and play and what they think. Okay, Square, here you are. How do you create powerful, challenging enemies while avoiding boring things like instant paralysis and stun? Well, if you know that you don't like instant paralysis and stun, don't ever use them. That's the easy answer there. Powerful and challenging comes from significant math. Don't be afraid to make an enemy that has plus 15 on everything. It's okay. Things are badass, and they don't always show it. Alucard being a great example. Alucard is like, he barely ever even fully opens his eyes. You know, he's always just kind of like this, like, you know, you guys are really not impressing me right now. You know, and he's insanely fast, insanely high damage. You'll see a great thing in a battle when a monster shockingly drops characters. And they're just like, what the fuck just happened? That's going to be a fun moment. Now, as a DM, you can't be overly sadistic, but you can be openly exaggerated in your math. It's fine. Alucard is a super gnarly badass. I love running with that example because he is terrifying. And he doesn't paralyze you. He doesn't stun you. He just, like, slices your head off and you don't even know until a round later when it slides off your neck. So I think just don't be shy. Just keep going, keep playing, and push it sometimes. When you feel like the game is ready for a big push, like this is no longer hand-holding, this is going to be gnarly. I would even almost say that. You guys, tonight is like kind of not hand-holdy. It's kind of gnarly. I kind of just went for a new approach. That's totally meta. You're not spoiling your big surprises. You're letting them know we're doing this hobby together. Final Fantasy VII Remake? Well, that's just too much of a non sequitur. I'm sure it's damn amazing. I'm still busy playing some other games, so I'll get to that in time, maybe. But I don't know if I really need a remake in life. Question. This is Hobbit Doshire. Were new Invincibles in Doom Vault created like this? Yes, they absolutely were. Thank you for the question, Hobbit. That's actually a great point. Is the Invincibles in Doom Vault are some of the only monsters I think I've ever encountered in anything that are just simply unharmable by any means imaginable. Like they will be floating through space when all the planets are dust. Like they're that invincible, and you just have to make players will refuse it so much they'll refuse to believe it, and that's where the fun happens. But they are just completely unharmable. And man, it's fun to watch players have this sort of acceptance. You know, they go through the different phases of grief, right? They try refusal, then there's anger, then there's negotiation, and then there's acceptance. How do you make these crazy nasty monsters without peeps getting mad at you for things being unfair? If your players are mad at you for you being unfair, they're probably insufferable people. It is not unfair to have dangerous monsters in a tabletop role-playing game. I mean, run. Go upgrade your equipment. Go find an ally out in the world who has a secret of how to defeat this thing. Instead of slamming your head against something, being bullheaded about it, and getting killed and then telling me I'm unfair. Like, all good groups are collaborative. Anytime that people are calling each other names in a group, that's not a group that I would want to be in. Yeah. Chris Bate, that's a great point. Yes. A save point in a game can really let you get into this. Yeah, Colville has some cool ideas. It was almost like a method of shorthand more than anything else. Hey, great. I'm all caught up. Look at that. Oh, dang it. Hey, there's Arizamir. What's up, dude? Erez Amir. I love that name. Here, let me switch what you guys are staring at so you can keep your eyes moving. Okay, Erez. What are some concepts from other hobbies like video games that are super applicable and good to think of for D&D monsters? Well, it depends on what you consume. If you consume a lot of comic books, then your best wellspring of ideas is probably going to be favorite moments from comic books. If you're a novel reader, there are probably moments that you absolutely will never forget, and it's a wellspring of creativity. I really, truly believe in being honest about what you like and what you want in a game. You're not sitting at the table, especially as Dungeon Master, to do something you don't want to do. You're there to make moments happen that you think are cool. If you think Wolverine is the coolest thing, you might find a lot of your monsters or even some of your player characters resembling Wolverine in certain ways because you're manifesting that fun and that desire. Take Starships and Steel, for example, my homie in the Great North. He's a Conan fan. Actually, probably one of the most hardcore, true school Conan fans I know. And he manifests that Conan feel in his game. He mines that like of his, that fun that he feels. So do it. I say do it unashamed. I mean, mine your interests. Let them be what they are. Has nothing to do with how original they are, how interesting. Unless your players are just like, dude, we hate Conan. Then I would have to say, well, why are you playing with me? I'm like all about Conan. Like you guys just plain don't like it? Well, that's going to be difficult. We need to go out and have a drinking session. Or actually, no, we need to stay home and have a drinking session and talk about like some middle ground that we all find interesting. So that's where I say mine what you know, not what may or may not be cool. Mine what you're into, what you know. If it's movies, if it's cartoons, if it's comic books, if it's novels, if it's freaking Jane Eyre, I don't know. Go with whatever gives you an emotional stir, because that is where creativity finds its fuel. It doesn't find its fuel in doing errands and tasks. It finds its fuel in little blips of joy that you get from going, ooh, Conan has a fur loincloth. Oh, I love that shit. Right? That's the kind of child mind that you want to access. Christopher Zach throwing this question at me. Will the art streams come back? I really enjoyed them. Well, you know, the value of doing things live in this sort of quarantine era is definitely escalating, isn't it? I mean, I know I've been watching a lot more live stuff because I can feel that other people are still like out there. The world still exists, right? So I actually feel live is gaining value. Even though I was really having fun doing the edited room design videos, and I'll probably keep doing those. But yeah, doing some art videos I think might be pretty fun. I think almost anything live kind of gives us a feeling of togetherness right now that to me is damn important. What's your ideal player group size? 4 players. Absolutely 4 players. 3 is really, really cool, but 4 is best for the social feel. But 3 is really, really cool for like the game dynamic. Right? You got like Legolas, Aragorn, and Gimli, and they're running across Rohan. That's a really cool group. But I think just for balanced like, abilities that balance against each other, you're an archer and I'm a wizard, that kind of counterbalance between players. I think 4 can be a little more comfortable. 3 can feel really dangerous. And it's especially fun if they're like all the same class or all the same race, because then they talk about throwing balance out the window. That can be really fun. Art streams are awesome. Oh, thanks, man. Top 3 online content creators we should draw inspiration from. Well, Prof DM is probably the one I find the most interesting. Hell, I don't know. That's a tough one. I kind of watched little blips of lots. I really liked Oats Studios for a while. They were really keeping me going, but they kind of stopped doing stuff. I'm not sure why. Yeah. And then I also like Comics Explained. That's one of my favorites. That's a really cool one. It's where they'll take like Thanos' entire story arc and break down all the issues and all the little events and ins and outs of what happened. And that's like, I've been a comic reader all my life, and to have it like summarized really fast in like a heavy visual format is really fun because, comics can take years to unfold storylines. So it's fun to kind of cheat at it. Besides falling. Yeah, like all these things are legitimate sources coming from Brett, and yeah, African, South American folklore, and yeah, and like switching things to have like an Aztec feel, a Mayan feel, or like a Swahili feel, really go out there, something that feels unfamiliar but also is like rich and cool, and lets you play with something new. That's also a great wellspring. What do you do if you really get the maths wrong with your custom monsters and your groups look like it will TPK in a CR3 encounter? You don't do anything. You just keep going. They need to run for it. It is not your responsibility to keep players alive. TPKs never happen because of dungeon masters. They always happen because of players. Players have hubris, and there is nothing more deadly in all of D&D than hubris. They think, well, we're gonna win. And it's them that get themselves killed because they're too stubborn to run away, and they have too much hubris to just be like, we should go around, or we should find a new way to work on this. It's not up to you. Hank, how old are you? As old as the hills and as young as the rivers. Yo, Philip Castro. Question. What's your opinion on Dungeon Craft YouTube channel? Just mentioned it. Absolutely love it. Me and Dan are kindred spirits, and we actually were just about to get together right before the apocalypse hit. We were just arranging, coming together and like joining forces somehow, because he lives right across the Delaware from me. And it was the same with Nerdarchy. We were about to start getting together and start gaming every week right before the APOC hit. So, man, I know that everybody has major bummers because of this whole world crisis. And these may seem like silly bummers, right? But that's what is going on right now, is like everybody's cool stuff and their plans and their ideas and their dreams and their jobs and their homes and their families and everything is on hold. And those are part of them. What is out the window, Hank? Well, the great, great city of Philly, PA, of course. Yeah, that's why I got that hams in my hand. You know what I'm saying? We striving and we surviving up here in Philly. You know that. Yeah, JT Renner. Fate is against you. No, I do not believe that. Fate has always been good to me. Even when it's been cruel, it's always been a teacher. Let's put it that way. All right, let's do a couple more questions, and let's get the hell out of here and return to our exciting shut-in lives. The Mapronomicon. Oh, that's my man right there. What up, dude? Question. Will you ever do anything with Cult Moo again? Man, I miss old Pink and Huero. I mean, I don't live in Washington anymore. I live on the other side of the continent from those guys, so probably not. Also, I don't know how they're still alive doing that channel. They are insane, and they're still doing it weekly. Like, oh man, drinking with those guys is a death sentence. Michael Hint, question. Do you keep personal track of player stats? No, not at all. Absolutely not. Not during play, not before play, not ever. That is the player's business. They track everything about themselves, all their spells, all their equipment. It's all their problem and their fun. Finally, here we go. Philip again. When are we getting some encounters again? Well, I just, what was the last one was the Hive. It was only like a week and a half ago. So I've been putting out a lot of room designs lately, and they actually, sometimes you need to let it rest a second and come back at it. Also because I'm running my campaign right now. All my players are forbidden to watch my channel, so that's kind of made things a little easier. But you always have to sort of balance the two, running the game and working on YouTube. Helium999, by the way, just seeing your thing up above. I never took classes. No, I found art instruction to be very frustrating. So I've just been done it the dumb way. I've just sort of trial and error over the last 40 years. Style of your terrain. Hey, thanks, man. Thanks a lot. Yeah, making terrain was a blast. I'd love to get back to it someday. Just right now, just not where I'm at. I live in a teeny apartment. With the quarantine and all, do you think you could do some more Roll20 tutorials? Harry Styles, absolutely not. I'm not going to do that. I'm getting really sort of weary of Roll20. The fact that it even needs a tutorial is part of its problem. And the more that online play is becoming our main method of play nowadays, it's getting more and more annoying. Fun announcement on that one. There is a Runehammer virtual tabletop service that will be released soon. Y'all gonna blow some heads up with it. Very proud of it. Yeah, I saw Mjörkberg. It's interesting. Some of these sort of gag RPGs aren't really my style, so I'm going to leave that one alone. It looks really cool, and a lot of people are having fun with it, so rock on with that. But yeah, sort of gimmick stuff is not really my jam. Is playing online working out? I can't seem to find my groove through Zoom. Yeah, Jeremy, it's hard, man, I'll tell you. And right when I had a brilliant tabletop group, a live group that we had formed here in Philly, I finally had an in-person group that was super invested and ready to show up every single week and killing it. And then this whole APOC hit, and so we're back to playing online, and it's a bummer, but it does work. You just got to get used to it, and use whatever, use Zoom, use Google Slides, use whatever. You will find a way. Yeah, it's terribly unintuitive. It's really the more people that I'm seeing getting into it, the more frustrating. Yeah, it's such a bummer. So I'm going to get out of here, you guys. That was an hour, just went by like in the blink of an eye right there. Before I go, everybody, please remember. One last thing, Davis. I can't quite talk about it yet, but I got to tell you guys, it's very, very exciting. It's a minimalist virtual tabletop. It's so easy to use. There are no instructions. You guys are going to love it. We're coding it from the ground up. It's going to be awesome. More coming on that soon. Your backyard. Did Tolkien have a yard? I think he might have lived in a flat. Anyways, I'm going to get out of here, guys. I hope that the monster creation session was something that you can get down with, something that could be handy for your upcoming games. Always make cool monsters. Always just work with your players. Do the hobby as a group. And most importantly, everybody out there, hang in there. Stay strong and happy. I know it's gnarly. Just, love thy neighbor, love thy homie. Just keep on believing, keep on achieving. We're going to make it, all right? And thanks, everybody, for tuning in. It was like almost 200 of you hanging out to work on Monster Workshop today with me. Great to see you guys. See you tomorrow night for Runehammer Happy Hour, which is live DJ sets every Friday night, so we can come together over the beats, all right? So thanks again, everyone, and I'll see you out on that internet, okay? Peace out.